Welcome to Nectar of Instruction, text number 2. We've made it. We've passed text number 1. So by now, everyone's a Goswami. They're fully in control of their senses. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam. And now we go on to text 2. Actually, we have 11 mantras in this book. And from text 1 to text 7 is Raganuga, is actually Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Okay? The goal of life, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us is Prema Pumarta Mahan, right? The highest goal of human existence is to learn to develop pure love for God, Krishna Prema. Now, what's going to happen is that from text number 1 to text 7 is actually Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. The rules and regulations, the do's and don'ts that will help us to be on this path in a regulated, disciplined manner. So after you've passed text 7, you come to text 8, which is dealing with spontaneous devotional service. And the Sanskrit word for spontaneity in devotional service is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. Okay, so in Raganuga Bhakti, there is no need for rules and regulations. One's heart is sufficiently purified, and then one actually comes to the platform of where devotional service to Krishna in an unalloyed form of love and devotion is simply a natural phenomenon of one's existence. Then the verses after text 8 are dealing with a very, very high subject matter. It deals with bhava and then with prema, Krishna prema. So as we said in the previous 2 classes, this book will take one from the platform of uncontrolled senses, turning one into a Goswami, giving one the pointers, the rules or the advice on how to gain control, gain discipline to come to that platform of purity. So in text 2, okay, let's say the invocation prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together with me. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayan Dadati Swapadantikam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? And that takes us to text 2. So I read the line in the meter first, and then you repeat after me. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jnana sangascha lolamcha sadbir bhakti vinasyati. Little faster in the second time. As we said in the previous 2 classes, these first 3 texts of the Nectar of Instruction are important, and if we should try to learn this off by heart. So we're just repeating this verse 3 times so you become familiarized with the meter of the verse. Personally, I found that if I know the meter of a verse, it becomes so much easier to memorize. Prayasascha Rajalpo Niyamagraha Jnana Sangascha Lolamcha Sadhi Bhakti Vinasyati. And the final time. Atyahara Prayasascha Rajalpo Niyamagraha Jnana Sangaschilolamcha Sadvi Bhakti Vinasyati. Jnana. Thank you. The translation of this verse by Srila Prabhupada. One's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes too entangled in the following 6 activities. Eating more than necessary or collecting more funds than required, over-endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain, talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters, practicing the scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of scriptures and working independently or whimsically, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness, and being greedy for mundane achievements. So it's pretty loaded. All of a sudden, as conditioned beings, we have formed so many bad habits. And here Srila Rupa Goswami is alerting us to the fact that we have to have a paradigm shift, to change certain things that we're doing, to step up in our unconditioning of our conditioned self. And it's very interesting. Srila Prabhupada explains, he starts off the purport by explaining that the entire creation has 3 potencies of Krishna. Okay? You get the internal potency, the Antaranga Shakti. Then you get the Tatastha Shakti, which is us, the marginal energy. And then you get the Bahiranga Shakti, which is the external potency, the Mahamaya potency of the Lord. All right? So you get his internal potency, which is totally spiritual. Then you get the Mahamaya potency, which is tinged with material consciousness, an existence that is saturated in material consciousness, I would safely say. And then you get us who fall in the Tatastha Shakti, or the marginal potency, okay? So we're sort of, if you use the analogy or if you draw the comic in your head, you're sitting on a fence. You can choose to fall on this side or the other side. So the individual living entity, the Jivatma, has got minute independence. We have all heard that. So every morning when we wake up, we have a chance to reinvent ourselves. Choice that nobody else has, to carve a new destiny every single moment, every single day. So it's like standing in front of all these doors that you see here. And you have a choice which one you're going to enter through. So every minute of your existence, every minute of my existence, you and I are given this choice to either fall under the Bahiranga Shakti, or we could fall under the Antaranga Shakti. That means we could make spiritual choices, or we could make maha-material choices, so to say. Okay? Then Prabhupada goes on to explain that a person who is under the internal potency, who is the intelligent person who has chosen to come under Antaranga Shakti, he's that person whose consciousness is tuned into Krishna consciousness in whatever he does, whatever situation the person is in. Arjuna was on a battlefield, and he was Krishna conscious. So even though all of us are not residents in a temple, we are not so fortunate that we have 24-hour opportunity to be immersed in direct Krishna seva. But it behooves an intelligent person to switch consciousness wherever he is, and try to channel the thoughts, deeds, and actions in such a way that the end result will be to the benefit of one's Krishna consciousness. Then Prabhupada goes on to explain that a person who chooses to be under the divine potency of the Lord, that person is a Mahatma. And the person who chooses the opposite, who makes the inferior choice, with regard to what Prabhupada has just explained in the purport, that person is not a Mahatma, of a Mahatma. And the word given is Duratma. So he explains that a Mahatma is very broad-minded, and a Duratma is very, very cripple-minded. He uses the word cripple-minded. So cripple means the ability has been shunned or taken away from the person, right? You're strong one moment and then you cripple the next. What does that imply? That you had the ability, but unfortunate circumstances have now led us to become crippled. The consciousness is being described using this adjective, that a Mahatma is not deluded. So a Mahatma, or a great soul, lives under divine protection, is fully engaged in devotional service, knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna, and is very broad-minded. The Duratma works to satisfy the senses, engages in expanded sense gratification of nationalism, and appears good from a material perspective, but has no spiritual value. Duratma is under Mahamaya. So the Duratma, or the triple-minded person, engages in good deeds, in pious deeds, for the good of family. The Duratma will be able to make sacrifices, Prabhupada explains in this purport. For sacrifices for family, sacrifices for the country, sacrifices on an international level. But such sacrifices is not linked to the spiritual energy of the Lord. So although it appears good, it is not it does not lead to the ultimate goal of life. And Prabhupada explains this sentence in the purport. Everyone requires possessions such as food, grains, clothing, money, and other things necessary for the maintenance of the body. But one should not collect more than necessary for his actual basic needs. So Prabhupada is telling us, because when we read something like this, we may question, now what must I do? You know, I'm a pounds and shillings person. I need to go to work. I have a family to maintain. I have my future to secure, etc., etc., etc. But how to execute these activities? Prabhupada says that we can do it in a certain way, and he gives us 3 analogies to give us some guidance on how to go about these essential activities in our daily life. So he gives the example of not collecting more than necessary. He uses the analogy of a bird. He explains that lower living entities with lower conscience than a human being, they have the ability to take only what is needed. It was Mohandas K. Gandhi himself that has said, there is enough on this planet for every person's need, but not for every person's greed. So the other species, Prabhupada explains, if you put a bag of grains out on the street, what would they do? Come, take enough, perhaps take some, a bird will carry one of some grain to go feed its bird, its baby birds, its chicks. Is that what you call baby birds? Chicks. So it takes some grain and it goes off like that, but it will never make to finish the entire bag. Then you get, a rat coming, A rat will eat some, go away. Whatever animal comes by will only take as much as it needs. Being comes. What would the human being do? You get a bag of grains lying outside your door. What would you do? Huh? Take the whole bag, put it into storage, sell it, make money. We'll have so many plans, right? Because our greedy sensation, this itching sense of atyahara, of collecting more than necessary, becomes so overpowering. We're so conditioned like this that we will want to hoard it. Do you know one time, Srila Prabhupada, he made this statement: if we get $1 million, we won't let it sit in the bank or invest it. We'll spend it today and collect another million tomorrow. Why? When I heard this statement, I was thinking, why? So when I asked some devotee, a senior devotee, and the devotee was explaining to me, Lakshmi is the consort of Narayan. Away from Narayan, the more you use her in the service of Narayan, her beloved husband, the more she will become manifest, because she knows she's landing herself in good hands. So Prabhupada, he had this idea that everything we get, we don't hoard. We immediately use it in Krishna's service. Sometimes, some time ago, we had a friend who was friends with some people who knew about everybody's bank accounts. You know, you get these people, they have their eye on everyone's bank accounts. They work in secret circles, etc. So he heard that this devotee was a member of the Hare Krishna movement. And he said, your movement has so much money passing through your account, but I don't understand why you get so much and you spend it as quickly as it comes in. So for a materialistic person to understand this concept of utilizing things immediately in Krishna's service and not hoarding it is practically unknown, because the conditioning is so vast that, you know, we're conditioned that everything we need to hide. The dependency that Krishna is going to provide is practically null and void. Yesterday, I think it was, I was listening to a lecture, and it was mentioned there about one Goswami. Yes, he was all prepared. You know, he had come to the conclusion that it is imperative for him to take sannyas. Lo and behold, man proposes, God disposes kind of thing happens, right? Nimitani viparitani. We make plans and the outcome is different. Wife died. Just as and he has a little kid, a newborn kid, you know, so she gave birth to a newborn kid and she died. So then he was thinking what to do. And he was sitting under a tree and he saw as a bird, a chick in its nest. And that chick was actually squeaking for food. And as it was crying out for food, its mother was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps its mother was also killed. But by the arrangement of, by divine arrangement, a slight breeze blew and a worm from the upper branch fell directly into the mouth of the. So then he got the idea that nothing depends on him. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, everything depends on him as pearls are strung on a thread. You know, like how your neck beads, they're all held together. How? So Krishna uses that analogy in Bhagavad Gita. You don't see the thin thread, but it's invisible to our eyes, but it's playing the most vital role because it's holding everything together. So because we have lack of faith in the fact that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, for the devotee, what does he do? He carries what we lack and he preserves what we have. Come hoarders, right? And Prabhupada gives another example. He says, that if a man is walking on the road, he gives the example of three people. The first person walks on the road, he sees the $100 bill, right? Or maybe R100 note in South Africa. And then he thinks, okay, $100 bill does not belong to me. What does not belong to me, I should not touch. And thereby, he simply walks past. Then you get the second category of person. He comes and he sees the $100 bill and he takes it and he enjoys it. The third person, why? Finders keepers, losers weepers. Then you get the third category of person. He sees the $100 bill. He picks it up and he tries to find out who is the owner of this, which person lost it. It's an awful lot of money. So I might as well find the person and return it to that person. And Prabhupada explains that that third category of person is of the highest intellectual stature. Why? Everything belongs to Krishna. Krishna is the supreme proprietor. Whatever comes within our reach is not for our sense gratification, but for utilizing in the service of the proprietor. So that mentality is an essential mentality to cultivate and to live by. Gives another example. He gives the example of a rich man. This rich man, he was so interested in atyahara, in collecting more than is necessary, and he became a very, very successful person. And in his great success, he accumulated a lot of wealth, a lot of assets. But as is the story of human life, his life came to an end. And when his life came to an end, he had to leave all of his wealth behind to his sons. So his sons, they hadn't worked for this money, and they had a bit of an arrogant sort of mentality, because, you know, when a lot of wealth reaches them and they haven't worked for it, sometimes the tendency is not to behave in a appreciative and decent manner. So the father, Prabhupada explains, takes birth as a cobbler. He takes birth and he becomes a cobbler, a poor man. So, and it so happens that his house is right down the road from his son's house, his previous dwellings. So when he goes to the house of his previous sons, at him, because a cobbler is a lowly sort of job in social understanding. So Srila Prabhupada explains that whatever was accumulated and hoarded in his lifetime did not really pay off in the long run, because he took birth as a cobbler, and then after that, look at the treatment he got from his sons. So, atyahara, collecting more than necessary. There are different, in the commentaries of the various acharyas, there are actually different pointers to what this word refers to. So atyahara refers to collecting more than necessary, or the acceptance of religion for material prosperity. I have a hint in the picture. Can you tell me what this alludes to? Think back on your childhood days when your teacher made you pray. Give us this day our daily bread. Remember that prayer? So we approach religiosity for material gain. So the understanding is, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that he is the seed-giving father of every living entity. Now, is it the position of a child to go to a father and say, or have you ever done this in your life, having faith and love for your own dad as the protector of your life, the supplier of your needs? Have you gone to your dad and said, one morning, perhaps, Dad, am I going to get food today? Am I going to get shelter today? Am I going to get clothing today? No, we have faith that Dad is going to provide for us, right? We don't even think of the fact that the father or the mother will not be providing. So now, what happens is that the when a person who is imbued with material consciousness accepts religion for material prosperity, it is accepting religion for the wrong reasons. Because in the science of self-realization, we did that the goal of religion is what? To know God and to love God. Thank you. Right? Religion means to know God and to love God. Right? Then over endeavor to acquire knowledge by karmis and jnanis. That means so much endeavor in one's life to get PhD, MAD, they would say, so many degrees, okay? So many, so much ardent, so much of ardent to gain materialistic knowledge. But when it comes to spiritual knowledge, that greed, that thirst, that incentive becomes lacking because we're so conditioned in a materialistic manner. Not for y'all are very sincere people, but for most people. Atyaharis also includes bhukti karmis, mukti karmis, siddhi karmis, communists and capitalists. So Prabhupada will explain this a little better as we go along, but it's just mentioned here. But Prabhupada, so it is said that the karmis want to enjoy gross senses, the jnani wants to enjoy the subtle mind because he uses his mind, his intelligence to acquire this knowledge about this, knowledge about that. They become proud that they are educated in knowing about this, that, and every other thing. That can be likened to, you know, when a person knows everything about anything, you know, you come across people like this in society, you can sit with them and in 5 minutes they can start a conversation about X, Y, and Z. Right? And they can go on talking if you give them the opportunity. However, when it comes to spiritual understanding, there's practically nothing they can tell you, right? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, do you know what he said? He said we should publish a Krishna conscious newspaper in those days. Of course, these now you'll say blogs and vlogs and whatever. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, back in the day, he said he could publish a newspaper on a daily basis just based on Krishna consciousness. Now you take current society, you pick up any periodical, any newspaper. How many columns do they have for good news? They practically have nothing because all they have to talk about is bad news. So the jnani wants to enjoy the subtle mind, wants to, and knowing about this, knowing about that, all of this. This is enlightened to, if I take a motor vehicle and put it in front of you, and you open each part of that car and you study the shape, the texture, the purpose of each part, but you forget to understand the goal of all the parts in unison. The goal of a jnani to go about and find out about every facet of life, but miss the essential point that the goal of life in its conclusiveness is prema pumarja mahan, like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has taught us, to learn love of God. Then the yogis, they want to manipulate the universe by mystic powers, an acquisition of mystic powers. They will do all kinds of austerities, utilize energy, burning maybe 6 to 8 fire pits around them in the summer, and sitting there to show that they can conquer heat. Various acrobats to show that they are in control of things others are not in. But yet, the goal of life is taboo for them. Then the second word, atyahara prayasascha, right? So prayasas means an over endeavor or unnecessary endeavor caused by atyahara, the greed factor, the need to acquire more and more and more. It results in a misuse of intelligence and a production of unwanted things, example, factories, slaughterhouses, brothels, and liquor shops. So Prabhupada holds back no punches here. He explains that our society, governed by materialistic greed, has led us to work so hard to manufacture things in a factory. Sometimes I often wonder, how much will it cost to go to your backyard and plant some vegetables rather than all that endeavor, wake up every morning, every day, utilize, maintain a vehicle, maintain a wardrobe, maintain a vehicle, a fuel bowl, then communication, GPS is needed. All of that, you have a long list. Why? So but when you get your salary, you can go and buy food, right? And how much would it have cost you to plant in your backyard and maintain it? Natural resources are there, and soil and water, sunshine, beautiful climate in this country. So we have made life so complicated. Srila Prabhupada said in many lectures, in many of his purports, that what have we created? We have created a nuts and bolts society. When hunger comes, what benefit will nuts and bolts be to us? Here in this purport, he stresses simple living and high thinking. He explains that all human being needs is land and a cow. Thank you. Land and a cow. I'm happy you read. Land and a cow. That's all you need. You need the land to till your grain. The bull is the father that helps to till the soil. And the cow is the mother that produces liquid religiosity. Milk, another word for milk in sadhu circles is liquid religiosity. What it explains in the Bhagavad Gita, in one purport there, that hot milk, it nourishes the finer brain tissues of a person. And it helps you to understand higher spiritual subject matters. You find in all circles, when anyone is studying, they require a certain good fat for their brain cells to function. As a nutritional therapist, I will tell you, I'm certified, and I will tell you, this is bona fide. You need your omega-3s, for your brain substance to work. Otherwise, you become frustrated if you're trying to study anything. Now, to study spiritual subject matters, culture, hot milk and almonds. Every time you go to someone's house, they always offer hot milk and almonds to a brahmana, right? Because it is a known thing in religious circles that this will help the person understand deeper spiritual subject matters, and thus they'll be able to uplift the lives of others. Right? Because the Brahmana is meant to be the head of society. And Prabhupada said he's created a society to turn each and every one of us into that consciousness. Then an excerpt from the purport. If our endeavor, prayasas, is not to inquire into the absolute truth, we will simply increase our endeavor to satisfy our artificial needs. So the mind and intelligence is such. The human being's nature is such that if he's not engaged in higher spiritual matters, immediately the need is there oh, maybe I should tune into the television. Let me see what's in the latest book. Let me see the latest movie. The mind will have its demands because the urge to know more is there. Why? Because what are we? We are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. That Chit factor, the knowledge factor, is lying dormant. It's covered. We have to uncover it. And in order to uncover it, it requires that we hear this. There's a thirst. There's actually a pinprick in society, Prabhupada said. And that pinprick could only be filled, that void in society can only be filled with Krishna consciousness. Then we move on to the third thing. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha, right? So prajalpa. Jalpa means speech, and prajalpa means harmful speech. So Prabhupada explains that prajalpa is unnecessary talking, and he explains that this unnecessary talking also has a different category attached to it, which means reading the newspapers, magazines, crossword puzzles, and novels, playing cards, fishing, TV, mundane, debating, frivolous activities in general. Does it sound familiar? This is basically how we've been conditioned in our material existence, that it is essential for a civilized human being to engage in these things. But we have to now understand that we have to go a step beyond civilization, material civilization. There's a higher purpose, because Prabhupada explains via the analogy of a frog. He says that a frog is always croaking, and it becomes so proud of its existence, of its croaking. But what is it inviting? It's inviting death. What sounds so sweet to the frog, its own croaky voice, right? That voice is so soothing to a snake, because the snake knows there is my food, there is my food. So the unnecessary talking, the unnecessary vibration that we make with our mouth, with our tongue, is actually going to lead us to further entanglement in society. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, what is the authority of speech? Speech that is imbued with Vedic understanding, that is truthful, beneficial, pleasing to the ear of the hearer. So prajalpa, which is harmful speech, is something totally different. So one may think, does that mean silent? So what does silence mean? Silence means that one should not talk about things unnecessary, but one should rather use one's vocal cords to vibrate the glories of Krishna consciousness, the message of Lord Krishna, the message of our illustrious previous acharyas. So an intelligent person interested in Krishna consciousness should never take part in such activities. So prajalpa is of such great importance that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained 8 types of prajalpa in his commentary on Upadeshamrita, on this verse. He explains that the word prajalpa, it also alludes to useless talks not about Lord Hari, to arguments, godless quarrels like Maya and Vaisheshika, not based on the Vedas, gossip, talking about other people to establish one's own reputation, debates desired for conquest. In these things, and we're going to come to another 4 that he explains. Useless talks not about Lord Hari. We just heard that Prabhupada said it is equivalent to the croaking of a frog. Then the arguments, godless quarrels. How much of television programs of newspaper articles. Prabhupada gives the example in the purport of old men sitting together and discussing socio-political subject matters. You know, sometimes we have to understand that some things are within our circle of concern, but not within our circle of influence. What is the use of talking about things that we cannot tangibly affect? If something is bothering us, then we approach an authority or an avenue that can effect change and support that. But to sit and constantly talk about it to people who amidst us will not be able to effect the change is wasting their time and my time, your time. Time, we all know, a minute lost cannot be gained, right? It is your only commodity that you cannot gain once you've lost it. Then debates desired for conquest. Srila Prabhupada explains that devotees, it's very good for them to debate on subject matter, to debate spiritual subjects, to go in a room, have a debate, try to view the subject matter from all different angles. Devotees to do that. But the type of debate that is for conquest, that will then fan one's false ego, that, oh, we are better than somebody else. That type of debate is actually degrading to the Atma. Then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, fault finding in others, imposing. I just want to go back one other thing there. When he says, talking about other people to establish one's reputation, it becomes a very inconditioned state. When poison tastes sweet to us, in that type of consciousness, it becomes such a natural thing for us to put down another person for what reason? To only because of our own insecurities. Because we have an insecure heart. We have insecure feelings about our own capabilities, about our own abilities to effect any situation in life. Thereby, being devious in mind and heart, we seek to actually put down the next person so that we appear to be better than that person. So the consciousness is that the more I sing the non-glories of the other person, the more glorious I appear. Because I'm trying to indirectly impose on the hearer that I am better than that person. I am not guilty of those things. But scripture teaches us that one sees one's own qualities in others. The Mahabharata alludes to this fact with the example of Yudhishthir Maharaj. When he was sent out to go and find the most in society, he came back and he said, everybody is honest, I'm dishonest. But Duryodhana, on the other hand, Duryodhana, who was the complete epitome of dishonesty, he went out and what did he see? He said, everybody is dishonest, I'm the only honest person. So we see through tainted vision, the cloud of anarthas, the cloud of vision is clouded by this conditioning. Then Prajalpa, fault finding. Fault finding in others. That is imposing one's bad habits on others. So when we see a fault in somebody else, we have to know that we're also guilty of that. Right? Going back to that same example we just spoke about in the Mahabharata. Why? If you go to the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's in the first canto where Dharma the bull was actually three of Dharma's legs were cut. And in those purports, Srila Prabhupada stresses that one who sees the perpetrator as faulty is as guilty as the perpetrator. Dharma, when questioned by King Parikshit, who has done this to you? Dharma gave very beautiful answers, and I would strongly recommend that you go and Google or read that section where Dharma responds to Parikshit Maharaj and explains that these circumstances, imagine standing with 3 of your 4 legs chopped. You know who did this. You know it's the personality of Kali, but you will answer, it's destiny. It's my own, previous karma that has brought this upon me. It requires a very elevated consciousness. So we have to work on raising our consciousness. Practically, that is what Srila Rupa Goswami is advising us here. Speaking falsehoods because of one's self-interest. Do you know, telling a lie is such a bad thing. Whether it's a big lie or a small lie, telling a lie is a bad thing. Why? Because Krishna says that the austerity of speech is that it should be truthful, pleasing, and beneficial. When we tell lies, Mother Bhumi becomes burdened by it. We're standing on Mother Bhumi. We're taking so much service from her. But we are so eroded of compassion towards her, even though she's giving us so much of selfless service, that we will tell lies. You remember the time in the Krishna book when Mother Bhumi takes the form of a cow and she goes to Vishnu in the milk ocean, and she is crying, right? And Brahma is speaking on behalf of all of the devatas, and what is the situation? Mother Earth is now overburdened. So it is explained that one leg of Dharma, which is now even shaking and dwindling and practically crumbling, is truthfulness. So you don't tell a big lie or a small lie. You actually say no lies, right? That is in the category of prajalpa. Devotees is said to be the worst, right? And worldly talk devoid of God consciousness is another category. So blasphemy of devotees is said to be the worst. Why? What is a devotee? Krishna is known as Bhakta Vatsala, one who pleases his devotees, right? He will do anything to please his devotees. So the devotees are so dear that Lord Shiva tells Parvati that out of everybody in existence, the devotee of Vishnu is the worship of the devotee of Vishnu is the highest. Now, to go and blaspheme a devotee is actually something very, very detrimental to our spiritual growth. So in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, one is a Vaishnav. He loses religiosity, wealth, fame, and children. Loses it. Right? So this offense of blaspheming a Vaishnava is in the team of Radha. And it is an aparada to go against any of her team members. If one beats a Vaishnav, blasphemes a Vaishnav, shows disrespect to a Vaishnav, gets angry upon a Vaishnav, or does not express joy in seeing a Vaishnav, he goes to hell. Does not express joy in seeing a Vaishnav. Right? So if he beats a Vaishnav, blasphemes, now you may say, wait a minute, I know this thing. In Kali Yuga, I was in so many Bhagavatam classes, and I have heard that in the Kali Yuga, the offenses we commit in the mind does not matter. Because in the Kali Yuga, we get excused for any mental offense. Acharyas explain that once it creeps into your mind, and if it is not checked in the mind, it will come out in a verbal or physical manner. So you nip it in the bud, so to speak. As soon as not good about a person comes into our mind, we have to be alert. We have to live in the now to know, what am I thinking now? How is it going to help me towards the goal of my life? If it's not, we accept things favorable, reject things unfavorable. We're going to come to that verse next time, in the next class. So now it is said that 4 kinds of blasphemy to a Vaishnav. So you may think, if this blasphemy is the worst type of offense, I should know which types, Is it just, what does it mean to blaspheme a devotee? I don't slap anybody. I don't swear at anybody. I don't use harsh words at anybody. But hang on, lo and behold, it is explained very nicely in the Harinam Chintamani. To find fault with a Vaishnava for his apparent low birth. So sometimes living and praying in an international society and being born in pious Hindu backgrounds, it may sometimes become part of our conditioning to think that we have a superior birth to someone else from a different culture. This is wrong. When Srila Prabhupada took his dancing white elephants to India, even recently in Ujjain, they were challenged. Why are you giving Brahman initiation to those who are not born Brahmanas? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to defend this argument so heavily in so many of his writings, right? In so many debates, that a Vaishnav is not born a Vaishnav. We are not following a seminal line. In a Vaishnav is association of another Vaishnav, and by his own sincerity, how much purity becomes awakened to become a servant of Krishna. Then to blaspheme a devotee for his previous faults. So, if a person is guilty of this, to find fault in a devotee because of his previous faults, it alludes to the fact that we do not have faith in the process of Krishna consciousness. We should pick up the law book that Prabhupada has left with us so mercifully, that Srila Rupa Goswami has so mercifully given, and Prabhupada has translated, the Nectar of Devotion. It is explained there. If you take Charnamrita, how much of benefit is, how many mountains of sin is washed. If you chant Hare Krishna, if you perform devotional service, if you clap your hands before the deity, what happens? Harinam Chintamani, Nectar of Devotion, all of these writings are explaining how each religious practice that we engage in is so potent that what yogis are aspiring to get rid of or to acquire after births and births and births, available to us to acquire in one lifetime, left of this one lifetime. So we have got a huge amount of wealth of knowledge, which is coming to us we've not done anything to earn it. It's causeless mercy. And this is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to given us. And it behooves us as intelligent followers of this illustrious lineage that we understand that every person who is following Krishna consciousness, who chants Hare Krishna, even though they may appear somewhat sour to associate with, they're in the sun of Krishna consciousness, and as a sour fruit remains attached to a tree, accepting sunlight and water, it becomes sour sweet to sweet eventually. So every person, because we're shades of gray, we sour, right? And then it may take lifetimes to come to the next level. But the very fact that we're in the shower of Krishna consciousness all together, we have to tolerate the speed or the lack of it, of growth of the next person. Just as Srila Prabhupada and our superiors are tolerating us. You all know the story of Crazy Peter and Prabhupada when Satsarup Maharaj wrote that letter complaining about Crazy Peter and his lethargic ways in the temple as a full-time devotee, and Prabhupada replied in one line, "What's the matter? Can't you tolerate?" So many times devotees went and they complained about other devotees, and Prabhupada says, "Can't you tolerate as I am tolerating you?" One time, Kaushalya was Prabhupada's disciple. Kaushalya, she was being sort of prodded by so many authorities in the movement, because she was a woman and, so many things. There was a kind of mentality that was not very soothing to her heart. So she went to Srila Prabhupada and she revealed her mind. And she explained that she might as well leave ISKCON and go and stay in the Gaudiya Math temple because they're so respectful there, and she will still be Krishna conscious. Her not to go. Prabhupada said, "You're looking for a smooth sail in a rough ocean." Right? The material world is turbulent. You're on the ship right now. Just stick on it. Don't think of jumping off, changing boat, etc. If a devotee has previous faults, we have to acknowledge that with faith in our own hearts, that because they're following the process, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we don't need to pick on the person's past faults. Now, you must know, if a person offended you yesterday and really ticked you off, you know what happened between yesterday and today? He chanted Hare Krishna, went around Tulsi Devi, paid his obeisances to the deities, served the devotees, heard the Bhagavatam class, intense deposits in his spiritual bank account. So give him the benefit of the doubt that actually that person is growing, right? We hate the ignorance, not the person. To blaspheme him for his accidental fault. So sometimes a fault is not premeditated. Due to past conditioning, sometimes a person may go on Sankirtan to a liquor store, and the person in the liquor store may know him from previously because he was a good customer, and may tell him, "You want my money, but you don't want my hospitality? Have a sip at least," right? And because the person is not sufficiently strong in faith, may think, "Okay, I'll have a sip." Or, his past conditioning. He has an accidental fall down. This fall down was not premeditated. He never went in there with premeditation to break a principle. It was his past conditioning just overcoming him on the spur of the moment. We have to understand that we cannot blaspheme such a person. Okay, according to what Harinam Chintamani is explaining. So then, to blaspheme him for faults that are almost rectified. So, a person in Krishna consciousness, the common saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. Similarly, conditioning for 8,400,000 species times, God knows how many times. We've taken birth, we've become so conditioned, right? We have all of this conditioning, but there are some rough edges still. You have it, I have it, we all have it, okay? But to all of a sudden focus on somebody's rough edges, so to speak, is nearly there, right? It could be that it's this person's 60th lifetime in Krishna consciousness. He's just here to work off a little bit. It just happens that that person's not initiated as yet, and you are second initiated in the movement. And you may demean such a person. That's a faulty mentality. Because the only person whose job is to judge is Krishna. There is no vacancy in that department for you and I. We have to understand that as the person is practicing Krishna consciousness, all those things are almost rectified. So we have to see the bigger picture. Become a Mahatma, broad-minded person. Do you have any questions thus far on the subject of blasphemy of a devotee? Now, one other thing is hearing the blasphemy of somebody from another person, right? If I have a bad experience with you, and I go and tell the third person what an evil person A is, person B believes me. I've done the greatest disservice, and person B, if the person B is so narrow-minded to accept my limited opinion on that person, then he is also at fault. Right? So we never, like sometimes, for example, if somebody comes and tells me that Mataji or that Prabhu is very heavy, that's that person's opinion. I should prevent myself from developing that mindset. That person is a loving servant of Krishna who is in the sun of Krishna consciousness. Your opinion, it's your opinion. You have a democratic right to have an opinion and to voice it. And I have the ability not to accept it in my heart and consciousness. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. It is very important to understand that in a situation where you do business with a Vaishnav, you're using two caps. One is perhaps you're the manager and the person is a supervisor under you. I'm giving an example, right? So you have two caps. You have a manager cap and you have the cap of a fellow Vaishnav. But in the arena of business, the cap that you have to put on is that of a manager. You see the person as a fellow worker. When office closes, after office hours, you sit and have prasad together. But in the boardroom, you may have, a big clash, a clash of opinions, etc. But after that, you can, like the Kauravas and the Pandavas, they fought wars for Dharma, for Krishna's higher purpose. But after the war, they could go to each other's camps. So they set the example that we should follow. That's why Mahabharata was there. That's why, Krishna came down and put so much of endeavor into it. So when we deal with people in different circles, we have to understand what we're governed by. You employ a person, they have to sign certain contracts of employment. And for the person to be a responsible employee or partner in the business, one has to abide by the constitution of the business, etc. If one is falling short, then it is also the duty of a devotee to be straightforward with tact. However, if this is within devotee circles, running a project, for example, a festival organization, etc., or cooking a feast together, or some service arena. So sometimes We may see a very clear fault in a person. It's not wrong to see the fault, but how we deal with it is imperative. So we can make two choices. The first choice is fault and go and talk about it, let off steam to all our friends who have no jurisdiction to improve that person. Or we could choose a better way, that we go to that person's superior with all humility. First of all, praying to Krishna with love in our heart that that person becomes a better devotee. Then we approach the authority with that mentality. And with all humility, we explain how that behavior is affecting our service, and we can suggest an improvement. So that would be the more viable or more responsible way of dealing with it. Rather than taking it lower, then it becomes prajalpa, political. In today's society, social media is so geared to help propagate prajalpa that people in society in Kali Yuga is so opinionated, right? That we could go to social media and what's on your mind? Okay, I feel X, Y, and Z. It's your feelings. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, if you want to start a sentence with I think, go into a closet, close it, say the statement, and then come out. It's your opinion. It's limited. Ishopanishad explains our opinions are tainted by the four defects every human being is guilty of. Yes, go ahead. With tolerance. How does it, okay, how, no, we should be chanting all the time. So tolerance is there if something affects us. Explain if it's something directly. If someone comes and tells you they don't like your nose, you don't have to go write to the GBC about it. In my opinion, okay, it's my nose. I'm proud of it. I may have had a pig's nose in my last life. At least I have a human nose. If you think my nose is not like Krishna's nose, shaped as a sesame flower, so beautiful, etc., hey, that's your problem. It's holding my glasses up, right? I get to smell the Maha incense with it. I get to smell the Maha flower. I get to reduce so much of karma by this so-called ugly-looking nose. So who owns the problem? You own the problem or the next person? Right. So if that person has a problem, then you can't do much about it. You learn how to, and there's one born every minute, as they say. Right? So the world is full of, people like that. So they will come and needle you from all directions. So you have to have some intelligence to say that, okay, if this person tells you that you have a bad nose and you have a bad, and he has a worse nose, right? Then we're going to come to the verse just now, Gangam Vasanu Kalu Buddha Panka something, right? That the devotee's body is water. It is pure. It appears dirty or infirmed or not in the right shape or not in the right color or not, according to my material perfections. But it's a Vaishnav body. It's a body used in bringing pleasure to Krishna. So I have to have a paradigm shift, take the splinters out of my eyes, so to speak. So tolerance is there, but it's cultivated. If something is checking the progress of the Sankirtan mission, and you feel that a certain opinion is being hammered down, and it can actually deter us propagating Krishna consciousness, then you go to your higher authority with humility, as we said before, and you address it. Then one, it's always worthy to find out that if one is guilty of all things negative, what to do to rectify it. So what to do if one commits aparad? The Harinam Chintamani. Incidentally, the Harinam Chintamani is a recording of a conversation between Haridas Thakur speaking to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya appoints Haridas Thakur, born in a Muslim family, who is actually Lord Brahma, to take part in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he comes in that way, and he's Haridas Thakur. Incredible bond between Lord Chaitanya and Haridas Thakur up until his passing away. You could read about it in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he's explaining here what to do if one commits Vaishnav aparad. If by chance one commits Vaishnav aparad, it says if by chance, which means in a sober state of mind, in a normal state of mind, one should be alert enough to avoid it. If by chance one commits in a moment of delusion, if one commits Vaishnav aparad, then he must beg forgiveness from the Vaishnav, very earnestly holding his feet. Very merciful, so he will immediately embrace him and forgive him of all offenses. Offering praise to a Vaishnav. This is actually a devotee's business, that one should appreciate the value of other devotees. Nobody should criticize anyone. So you find that Srila Prabhupada set this example, that he will always glorify devotees for their services. Even in times when the cook would put extra salt in the prasad, Srila Prabhupada would not say anything while the prasadam was in front of him. In tune, that prasad is no different from Lord Krishna. I should not blaspheme in front, Krishna standing in front of me. I shouldn't go and say, oh, you're not good enough today. The potency imbued by devotion is totally different from the lack of material qualification. Of course, we should be educated enough to make good offerings, but if by chance we make a mistake, okay, then it's excusable. So it's actually a devotee's business to always appreciate another devotee. Prabhupada, I was reading a letter that Prabhupada wrote to His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who is Prabhupada's junior by far. It's an indisputable fact. Because Prabhupada is on such an esteemed level, of Krishna's dear associate, eternally liberated soul, coming into this world, Nitya Siddha Vaishnava, coming to impart this knowledge on Krishna's behalf here, the Senapati Bhakta of Lord Chaitanya's movement. Now, Prabhupada, in his humility, you know what he writes? He says, I'm very happy you came to visit my house. Your feet has now sanctified this place because you're a Vaishnav. So Prabhupada always glorifying a devotee. Someone distributed one bag to Godhead, one book. Prabhupada becomes so pleased to say, thank you very much. Always finding some way to glorify a devotee. Now, in connection with all of this, Srila Prabhupada in 1966 wrote this in his own handwriting. And this is what he expected of the devotees that call themselves members of the Hare Krishna movement. He says here, all initiated devotees must attend the morning and evening classes, be addicted to any kind of intoxicants, including coffee, tea, and cigarettes. These are forbidden to have illicit sex connections, must be strictly vegetarian, shouldn't extensively mix with non-devotees, eat foodstuffs cooked by non-devotees. You remember you talking about restaurant last time? Should not waste time in idle talks or engage himself in frivolous sports, should always chant and sing the Lord's holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. Signed, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Acharya, founder Acharya. Can it be any less clearer? Is it clear? Right? Prabhupada is telling us no frivolous activities. Okay? Then Niyam Agraha. Those interested in Krishna consciousness should not be eager to accept rules and regulations for economic advancement. They should very faithfully accept scriptural rules and regulations for advancement of Krishna consciousness. They should strictly follow the regulative principles by avoiding illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. That's an excerpt from the purport of this text too. So Prabhupada is saying, accepting the rules and regulations. Now, there's a very important pastime in this regard. Niyam Agraha is accepting the rules and regulations. Agraha is with the stroke above. This is without proper understanding. For example, there's the story. Lord Chaitanya, he lived in Jagannath Puri in a very narrow dwelling called the Gambira. At the Gambira, he had this one servant, Govinda, right? His name was. And Govinda had a service that every day he would come in and he would massage Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he would go to take lunch. But it's a rule that you don't cross over anything religious or any Vaishnav. You don't cross over anything sacred, right? You go around. If someone's paying dandavats, you don't cross over and walk. You wait or you go around, so to speak. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is blocking the entrance and Govinda needs to come to his service. Supersedes a higher rule for he supersedes a rule for a higher need. Okay? He crosses and he comes in and he does his service. Then he covers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the shawl. Lord Chaitanya wakes up and he sees Govinda inside. And what's the time? Past his lunchtime. Have you eaten lunch? No. You're blocking the way. I didn't want to cross over and go. So then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, but how you entered? At the time I had to do a service. So, at the cost of me taking the reaction, I wanted to fulfill my seva. It's needed to be done. Then, another thing is little knowledge is dangerous. So sometimes someone will say, hey, we just heard in this verse here, overeating is bad. But how can Srila Prabhupada cook a Sunday feast with minimum 12 preparations and then feed the devotees and then tell them to have more and have more and have more? Srila Prabhupada's strategy was, as is mentioned in the Harinam Chintamani, eating fancy foods. He didn't want them to go to donut shops. He said it is do-nots. Right? The non-devotee donut shops, he said, these are do-nots. When Hari Das paid obeisances and the 2 slabs of chocolate came out of his pocket, he took him to the kitchen and cooked halava for him. Right? Halava is a very rich thing. You put the equal quantity practically of butter, sugar, and farina or semolina. So where's the question of simple eating? Prabhupada gave a strategy that if you sacrifice your taste buds not to eat the food of non-devotees, like we read earlier on, and if you have devotee prasad, he had, there was a rule in the temples when the full-time devotees were more prevalent in our society, that you should feed the person. A new devotee comes, feed him until here. Why? Because Prabhupada had so much of faith in Krishna Prasadam. Practically, the chanting of Hare Krishna and the Krishna Prasad is what brought the new devotees. One time he told a devotee, you think they're coming here to listen to your class because they serve dry khichdi, right? They serve dry khichdi on the Sunday feast. And Prabhupada said, do you think they are coming here to hear your class? They are coming here to eat. You feed them sumptuous Krishna Prasad. When Prabhupada was so physically incapacitated, 77, the year he left his body, when he was about to leave his body, he could not eat himself. He sent His Holiness Bhaktichara Swami, who was his cook at that time, and a very good cook. So he sent him to go and check the devotee prasad, the quality of the prasad that was being served to the devotees. Prabhupada said, Krishna Prasad is our only sense gratification. But as one makes advancement, then one realizes that overeating, what happens? Do you know, as a nutritional therapist, I can tell you part of in my syllabus, I learned that when you're 20 years old, when you reach the age of 20, your digestive juices start to weaken. But what happens? You think I'm an adult now, I need to eat more. But actually, from the age of 20, we're meant to start minimizing. Prabhupada had one disciple who was a raw foodist, Nanda Kumar, from America. And he was, a thorough raw foodist. Nishingananda Prabhu and I went raw for 2 years, nothing cooked past our teeth. And it is the type of diet that makes the cells in your body want to scream in joy. It is such a happy diet for your body, right? We learned the art of making raw pizza, raw gourmet meals, raw burgers, so many things. And then we realized, hey, just eat it raw naturally, the better it is. You don't have to go do all of that. But we were raw for 2 whole years. So Nanda Kumar Prabhu from America, he was raw for many, many years of his life. So when he came to Krishna consciousness, a lot of things were fried or in sugar syrup. Right? So he was thinking this is like death, So he asked Srila Prabhupada about the raw food diet, and you can see it on YouTube. And he said that Srila Prabhupada said this is the best diet, but we can't tell everybody this immediately, But eventually, if you come to that level, it's very good. So initially, we don't preach that you have to limit your prasadam intake, etc. If somebody comes and tells me, for example, they can't wake up for Mangal Arti, I would have to ask them, what are you eating for supper? Maybe your supper is too heavy, right? Your intestines are so impeded by carrying the heaviness that you cannot wake up. Your body has had to use so much energy to digest this vast amount of influx of food that you've simply stuffed inside, that it has no energy, that you're waking up in the morning tired, right? So, there are different ways we have to educate ourselves about overeating. But initially, for children, for new people, etc., and not to become depressed, let the people have Krishna Prasadam, right? As Prabhupada taught in this movement, but within reason, nowadays it's so prevalent that your arteries can't take too much of that deep fried, saturated in sugar kind of meals. Jnana Sangha, right? Jnana Sangha is associating with worldly minded people. We should strictly avoid such association. We should always engage in devotional service, in devotee association. So in order to give up one thing, we have to replace it with something else. Prabhupada was so expert at dovetailing. You give up a lower taste, you replace it with a higher taste. That's how you give it up. So now you need entertainment in the evening because you've had less human contact, right? You've had less human contact the whole day. You feel that you need to go sit in front of the television and watch human beings. Please understand, you are actually taking bad association. If you're watching the type of program, I'm sure there are good programs. Personally, I don't own a television by choice, and I've never owned one for many years by choice. But I will tell you that if you are, for example, be on the platform of Sudasattva, pure goodness, if we have passion, right? The mode of passion and ignorance affecting us maybe by 80%. We should rather work on reducing it. You go watch a movie. It has incited your passion and ignorance to a higher degree. You come out 120% worse. So it is like taking a few steps forward. The goal is to reach my destination as quick as possible, but take a few steps forward and more steps backwards. It's going to be a very long journey. Or the other example is given of running on the spot and thinking you're going to get very far. It's like stuck in a hamster wheel, right? So it is important to accept these instructions at heart and understand what we need to do. ISKCON to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. So it behooves us, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that when we come across people, we must be in the category of those who have not forgotten Krishna. That our conversations have to be with the understanding that this living entity has been sent my way for me to elevate that person's consciousness, even if it's 1%. I must be able to add value to that person, because the members of the Krishna consciousness movement are meant to be those who have not forgotten Krishna. Srila Prabhupada could speak about anything, and he would do that. But at a certain point, he would find a loophole as soon as he got the person's favorability and take that consciousness higher to Sudasattva. So he uses the two analogies. Here of how people in the stock exchange, they stick around with like-minded people or the Chamber of Commerce, right? They gather there because they have a common understanding, they have a common interest, they only speak about that. You will never get them having time just because their urgency is there for them to speak and understand those subject matters. So he says he created the society so that we could come together and we could have collective raising of consciousness. And the last one, Lolya, right? This is the final slide. Being greedy for mundane achievements arises from jnana sangha, includes greed for material prosperity of bhukti, mystic perfection, siddhis, merging into the Brahman, mukti. All attempts to acquire such material benefits or so-called spiritual advancements are impediments in the path of Krishna consciousness. If you do something where you develop yogic, mystic perfections, people may come and worship you as someone who is of a higher, you're more special than others, right? So they'll come and worship you like that. And you may have a tendency to believe them, conditioned, right? And then it is bad for your Krishna consciousness. Merging into the Brahman effulgence is the impersonal aspect of Krishna. And being greedy for mundane achievements, for reaching such a high destination that yogis are spending so many lifetimes, right? It is actually what? It is simply not taking you to the goal of life. It is putting you on a detour. Okay? You won't reach the goal at high speed. So I'd like to conclude there for tonight. I thank you for your kind oral reception. And we say the concluding prayers, and then you can ask me any questions regarding this or anything else that I may be able to help you with. So you can say the line after me. Adadana strinam dantar idam yache puna puna Srimad Rupa Padambojar Duli Sham Janma Janmani. Taking a straw between my teeth, I pray again and again that I may remain in the dust of Srila Rupa Goswami's lotus feet, birth after birth. Shri Upadeshamrita ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Does anyone have any questions? Mm-hmm.
It becomes a bit complicated, you know, when you have kids and, you know, for example, so you better do these things as well, because otherwise,
yeah,
they get spaced out and they can't continue.
Yeah. One time, the question is, as a parent, sometimes you have to succumb to the needs of your children and take them to a cinema to watch Barbie or movie, etc. But on the other hand, as a practicing Vaishnava, you have now read this verse and feel that it's against your constitutional position as a devotee. Am I right? I understood your question. So this question was asked to His Holiness Bhakti Chiru Maharaj at one seminar, and he gave an answer that I thought was very nice. He told the devotee that it is better that you are going to the cinema out of duty to take your child, and you're thinking about the temple, rather than you going to the temple and thinking about how you should have gone to the cinema. So it's a matter of heightened consciousness. So sometimes, you know, you have to take them to the lion park, you have to take them to the zoo, you have to take them to mundane places, sometimes for their education or for their social needs, or because you don't want to artificially impose your religious beliefs on them also in a heavy way. So, it's important to strike a balance, that you equally educate them about Krishna consciousness and make it known to them that these things they may have to see because of peer pressure, etc. But the higher thing is, as devotees, you embrace, the Krishna movie, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, the pastimes in the Srimad Bhagavatam that you discuss and enact with them as a recreation. So those things are there. So you learn to strike a balance in that way. Any questions? What is frivolous sport and what are we allowed to play? Srila Prabhupada explained wrestling and swimming are Vaishnava sports. Wrestling. Want to try it? Bring it on. So wrestling and swimming are Vaishnava sports. Basically, sports can announce a competitive mentality in a person that is detrimental because you are wishing ill fortune on the other team, opposing team, because you want to be the winner. Yeah.
Okay.
But for one's physical health, one requires a good amount of cardiovascular exercise, right? Good cardio workouts are essential for a person as they're growing up, because otherwise your arteries become weakened, your valves, the ability to pump blood, your heart weakens. So what one needs to do is keep up some activity, but one has to be cautious to only accept that which is necessary. You need to do a 30-minute workout every second day, and do that. You don't have to go and show off that you're building muscles or you're doing this, that, or whatever. You're doing some, because then you become too much on the bodily platform. So, there are rare cases of devotees who do sports in a very intense way because they feel they could preach through it, become a good footballer or wrestler or something like that. It's an individual choice, but within one's individual understanding of what one wants to achieve in life, one should make one's choices guided by Srila Rupa Goswami's instructions in this divine piece of literature.
You don't do martial arts. That's what.
Yeah.
It's okay. Not just going to compete.
Yeah. We live in South Africa. You can go learn how to shoot also. Because it's an essential thing for survival, right? You may have to protect people. Where I remember since I joined the temple, I was quite surprised in the beginning. Some devotees had guns and they were living in the temple. But I was very surprised that actually that was used to protect the devotees, because sometimes we had intruders, who were equally armed. So, and I was present in situations like that. So, Arjuna, he picked up arms to fight. So if you want to do something in self-defense, every daughter should be taught self-defense in this country. What to speak of every son, So every person should know something, because we're living in the material world. We need these things to survive, but we don't do it so that it affects our consciousness and takes us away from Krishna, or develops pride in us. It teaches us to become a better servant, and that's the goal of life. Thank you very much. We can